Hello team and welcome back to another Line Warcast. This is your map today in a 3v3 between Alpha Team and Bravo Team. As always, on Alpha Team is Tomahawk in blue, Snow in red, and MP5 in orange. And on Bravo Team is Romad, Quantum Scientist in teal, Bassa in pink, and Procellist in green. It looks like all of Alpha Team is spawning on the left-hand side with Tomahawk up in the top left, right beside Snow, their teammate in red, and MP5 in the bottom left in orange. And then Bravo Team on the right-hand side, we have Romad in the north. No, this is Procellist in the north. Teal, pardon me, and green, sometimes difficult for me to see. So this is green, this is Procellist, this is Bassa, and then in the south, this is Romad, going for a double dock opener immediately. And this body of water is in the center of the map. It can be important. We'll see how this game goes, but certainly Bravo Team is going to have naval supremacy here. There's no way that Alpha Team is going to be able to contest it. It's two missile boats immediately for Romad. I can't tell you exactly what the difference is between a destroyer and a missile boat when it's in this stage, but I just know it. You know what I mean? It's like, you know it when you see it over enough time. These are missile boats, and it's two factories as well for Romad in the south. Bass is going for two airports, building helicopters at the moment, and Pink does have this refinery location very close to the base, and a second refinery as well. So likely we'll see a large air force for Bassa in this game. And to the north, Procellist going for two SAMs out of these two factories after building two artillery pieces, helicopters out of an airport, and a barracks. And on the left-hand side, two airports. It's probably going to be bombers entirely for Snow, seeing as this one airport is already building a bomber at the moment. A town and a pardon me, and a refinery in the back. Barracks right beside the airports. Three factories and a barracks for Tomahawk, and a town. And then a town and a mixture of barracks and factories for MP5 in the south. And of course a farm. Very cool looking building. Shouts out to Infenzia for this. And just before the action starts, because there will be a little bit of time before the action starts, as you can see, both teams are separated by quite a few territories. There are a handful of other channels that do Line Warcasts, namely Dåseåbneren and Jon Joe. And so I'll link their channels in the description. And if you have any other channels that you watch that do Line Warcasts, please comment them on the video. Let other people know about other creators that are casting this wonderful game. And here's a rocket. Bassa is building a rocket. The launch pad is completed. And we'll see if Bassa has the 500 money necessary, and it looks like Pink does. Here's the rocket going on the stand now. Generally, I think it's like a 7-minute build time for a rocket. This is in a very central location, which is very good. For Bravo Team, it can probably cover this choke point in general, the range, and then also might be able to, it won't be able to get this far actually, this rocket. The range is probably around here for the rocket. I can't really check exactly how far it will be able to fly. There's 4 helicopters now complete for Bassa, who's starting to move them closer to the front. And because of the picking phase, both teams will know that they're going to meet in the center of the map. I think that Alpha Team picked mostly on the left-hand side, Bravo Team picked mostly on the right-hand side. And it is actually a mixture of bombers and helicopters from Snow, so my mistake. I thought it would be all bombers, but it is helicopters and bombers, so it gives Snow a little bit of micro potential with the helicopters, the range of the helicopters, because they can land on allied territory anywhere on the map. Allows the helicopters to cover a lot of ground, and then the bombers, once Red gets enough bombers, a huge swarm of bombers is extremely powerful. We've seen that in team games before. The strength of it. So it's going to be a fight between MP5 and Romad in the south of the map, and then more of a little bit of a 2v2 in the north between Procellist, Bassa, and Tomahawk and Snow. Snow has a refinery and a power plant, connecting them with a pipeline. Makes a lot of sense. Red's going to have a bunch of energy consuming units in these airports. So we'll need to start storing some of this energy. We might even see a depot potentially. And Snow's going for 3 towns very quickly. So Red's eco going to be looking pretty good. Tomahawk's going for more of like a heavier army composition with these 4 factories and 2 barracks. And Blue playing it a little bit safe, having some SAMs on the way. In team games, it's probably guaranteed that at least one person on either team is going to go for a heavy air composition. In general, unless the spawns are extremely close between all the players. So good read from Tomahawk here to go for SAMs. And Bravo team is the first one to kind of get to this choke and start digging in. And it really forces Tomahawk to just dig in as well. There's no real way that Blue's going to be able to punch through this line, especially since it's 2 players on Bravo team that are sending armies up here. So expect to see the northern part of the map turn into a little bit of a stalemate. The rocket can't quite reach Blue's defensive lines. So as long as Tomahawk can hold on, and Bravo team doesn't decide to go for a push, maybe Tomahawk can find a weakness in the entrenchments, find a weak point and push through. But it will be a little bit difficult because of these green helicopters and these pink helicopters. Even if a blue army or a bunch of infantry are able to get past these defensive lines, the helicopters will be able to deal with them pretty easily. Procellus has a dock in the north. And I'd expect to see missile boats out of this dock, maybe cruisers along the coast here to kind of protect the flanks on these defensive lines. But very likely, I think that's just missile boats to make sure that Alpha Team can't go across in the north. And another factory for Tomahawk. That's the sound that we heard. In the south, Romad's building a factory very close. Bass's 4 helicopters, now 3 helicopters, are here taking on the SAMs. And this is a very, I would say, optimistic factory for Romad, but I think it is actually going to work out. It's going to be able to get up with the support of the helicopters and now all these artillery pieces. Teal should be able to start producing out of this factory before it's destroyed. And very soon, I think Romad's going to turn off this dock production. With the double dock opener, there's already a ton of boats in here. A mixture of destroyers, cruisers, and missile boats. There, of course, was a chance that Alpha Team would also build a dock in this lake. I don't think Alpha Team would necessarily be opposed to doing that, because controlling this part of the map might become important. So in the same way that Tomahawk's kind of getting 2v1'd in the north, MP5 is also getting 2v1'd in the south. Taking on both Romad and Bassa. And top down, the map's pretty much already split at this point. A defensive line of, okay, there's a rocket, I can hear it. So although the rocket couldn't hit the blue defensive lines, they can still cover the defensive lines of... Is this how far a rocket can go? Alright. Well, I'm wrong. I didn't think that's how far the rocket would be able to go. It takes out a decent amount of units. This opens up Procellus to go for a push. And maybe Green will be able to get something done here. I kind of doubt it because this is a decent spot for Blue to dig in. And there's also 6 factories already for Tomahawk. So Blue will be able to rebuild the army relatively quickly. In the south, Bassa has 6 helicopters. There's 2 SAMs for MP5, which isn't quite enough. if all of these helicopters fight at the same time, which it looks like they're going to, it's going to reset Orange's SAM count. And not Pershell's, MP5 had a little bit of a disadvantage trying to push into this mountain range with their artillery already deployed. Thankfully for MP5, Snow's massive amount of infantry is also going to get into the fight, but unfortunately for Red, Orange's units are going to dry up pretty quickly, taking on this artillery blob. Romad's got the second barracks behind the factory, and all of those buildings will complete. And another rocket for Bassa, who has added a third airport. Good amount of SAMs for Pershellist in the north. There's a city on the way for Tomahawk. And it's hard to check ecos in a team game like this, so I'm not even gonna try. But it's probably relatively similar. Maybe a little bit more for Bravo team. There's one full airport of bombers that are complete for Snow. We might see an airstrip at some point for Alpha team so that Snow can continue to build these bombers. Once there's 5 bombers on an airport, the airport will stop building planes because there's no more room. And we can see the plan for Snow is to go to the north and start working on this one cruiser. And the rocket earlier is actually very effective. It's allowed Pershellist to push this infantry force through this little bit of a mountain and then, I guess, open up a second front against Snow, who is fully embroiled in a battle against Romad in the mountain range. There isn't as much of a movement nerf to the red and orange infantry because this is an orange controlled territory in the mountain here. The infantry will still move more slowly, but it's not as bad as like if this was a teal controlled mountain tile. But Bass's helicopters coming in clutch. There's not really enough SAMs here at the moment for Alpha team to take on the pink helicopters. Bassa sends the helicopters back as soon as the SAMs kind of get within range. And quite the fight. 4 helicopters, rather, I can't count. 6 helicopters for Snow in the south now, which is really good because Romad has not built any SAMs yet, and the artillery pieces are going to melt against this many helicopters. You can see just how quickly the helicopters delete these units. And Bass is going to rotate all the helicopters up to the north. I'm not sure if this is in response to the number of SAMs that Snow and MP5 have in the south now. Maybe it's probably more that there's a lot of pressure on Pershellist in the north against this push from Tomahawk, who has a completed city, so there's a lot of eco. You can see that Tomahawk's adding another factory because Blue has the money to pay for this. Fantastic run by from Pershellist in the north to get on this town, and will likely be able to destroy this town. There's no target command from these green infantry. I keep thinking it's teal, but these green infantry, if there was a target command, I think that town would have gone down. But very close. The defensive line for Pershellist is buying a lot of time. These helicopters for Bassa are now here, but they are out of energy. This next rocket for Bassa is going to be devastating. It's going to be able to destroy so many blue units. Now that I know that the rocket can actually reach here, it actually makes me think this rocket could probably hit the south as well. Maybe not. Anyone's guess. Maybe, maybe not. Romad's getting 2v1. With Snow in red and MP5 in orange, starting to fully encircle this position. As the units get closer to the buildings, the Navy for Romad isn't necessarily going to be able to defend these buildings. Certainly not the two in the mountain range, maybe these two that are closer to the coast. And Romad continues to build boats. And the next rocket is complete for Bassa. And one of the reasons I went to cast this game is that there was a discussion in the Line War Discord about the potential option to turn off rockets in a lobby, in a custom lobby. A lot of discussions about rockets and how they function in 1v1s. Obviously, team games have different balance considerations. So there's a thread about the strength of the rocket. This time the rocket is going to go down to the south. And this is going to be quite large. It's going to buy Romad a decent amount of time. But I don't think that it's going to allow Teal to actually start pushing again. And that's about the best placement possible. The rocket does destroy one of the factories with the building flying into the water like this. But all this really does is that Romad might be able to dig in here and at least like reconstitute some of the forces before facing another push. MP5 putting down a barracks and a factory. And this will be another strong 2v1 situation. In the north, the helicopters for Bravo team clean up a ton of blue units here. And top down, total split map at this point. Bravo team with probably a little bit more territories. And yeah, this is the dig-in from Romad. Close to the forward barracks. If Orange can get all the way around the south and fully encircle these producers, that's clearly very good for Alpha Team. And I think over time, that is what's going to happen. Bassa does have a third rocket that's on the stand now. About 1/3 of the way complete. And Pink's plan is to continue to send the helicopters up to the north. It's a huge helicopter swarm now for Pink. And Tomahawk is officially on the defensive, grouping up units in front of the production center and adding another barracks or another factory, pardon me. Snow has a full airport of bombers. These are still a threat. And a decent amount of helicopters. And for Tomahawk in the north, Blue really has no choice but to dig in and defend. Romad is on borrowed time here. This is an enormous artillery blob with a decent amount of infantry for Orange and Red. And Romad continuing to build ships out of these docks. The nice thing about having all these ships is that this is a very narrow choke here in the south. And so the boats will be able to help out defend that when Orange and Pink, or Orange and Red decide to push through that. But this aforementioned helicopter swarm for Bassa is now on top of all the reinforcing units. It's a full dot of SAMs. I think if all these helicopters took on these SAMs, though, the Pink helicopters would win. We'll see if that's what happens if Bassa decides to send them back across this body of water and attack the Red SAMs next time. And the next rocket very likely will go down to the south again. Although, as we saw before, the rocket can actually hit about this far, so maybe the plan from Bassa would be to rocket this defensive line, which would allow Perselis to push, and then probably, if not take Blue out of the game, super do like a ton of damage to Tomahawk. And make it effectively a 2v3. Bassa's adding these 2 factories. I mean, it's really 5 factories and a barracks that's super close to the front, so this will mean that Pink is going to be able to reinforce Purcell's army very quickly, and there's a lot of helicopters still for Orange. Bass is going to send the helicopters down to the south now, it looks like, because Romad is officially in trouble. I think the only reason that Romad isn't about to get knocked out of the game is because this rocket is going to be extraordinarily effective in this choke. There's not a lot of SAMs. Bass's ability to send the helicopters in here, like we just saw with that raid attempt, it just means that it's hard for Snow to want to, you know, push a bunch of SAMs up with this army and get the SAM coverage everywhere. So this sortie from the helicopters is going to do a lot of damage. There's no SAMs for Orange or Red on top of that push. Interesting game. Very push and pull. MP5 also has a city in the south and working on a second city by this port. Artillery can shoot up and can attack helicopters. It seems weird, but they can definitely do it. They don't do a lot of damage at all. Did I get that right? Am I actually trolling? Is it only tanks that can shoot up? Maybe it's only tanks that can shoot up. We can hear it. Here comes the rocket. Same sort of thing. It really only buys Romad some time because it's still a 2v1 push. And Bass is gonna... No, this is... Okay, is this Bass? Bass is building a second rocket. Second launch pad, rather. Purcellist also building a rocket in the forest here, while working on a city. And I think this is starting to look pretty good for Bravo team, given the amount of helicopters for Pink, how difficult it will be for Alpha team to actually push through this choke, given all the boats, and then also the rocket, and the second rocket as well. And then in the north, Purcellist has a good insurance policy against Tomahawk somehow pushing through this with a rocket. Here comes Snow's helicopters to take on these two cruisers and a missile boat. 5 helicopters should be able to do this. They dispatch the missile boat, destroy the first cruiser, and the second cruiser will also go down very quickly. And do I hear another rocket? No. Thought I heard another rocket. We're about to hear another rocket, though. Top down. The only territories that really have switched hands are in the north here. Tomahawk going back on the defensive. Nice thing for Blue is that there's really enough SAMs to defend this area of the map in general. So Blue won't need to continue building SAMs out of the factories, and we're seeing exactly that. It's all artillery pieces out of these Blue factories, but Tomahawk is in the red on money at this point. Bombers are pretty effective against SAMs because SAMs can't use their machine guns to attack bombers. They can only use their missiles. But given the amount of bombers here and the amount of SAMs for Bravo team, bombers are going to have a tough time. So Tomahawk's going to dig in. Snow's trying to help out with these helicopters. In the south, Bromad's building a multi-tiered defensive line. But there's just so many artillery pieces. The rocket for Bass is 2/3 of the way done. The second launch pad, there's not enough money for Pink to actually build the second rocket. And Procellus' rocket is on the stand at this point. It won't be, I mean, I guess this probably can reach, since I have, I'm not that good at judging the distance of rockets. If this launch pad can get here, then surely this launch pad can actually start hitting some of the blue buildings. And if not the blue buildings, then these blue defensive lines. And top down. Not much has changed. I'm going to do the impossible and we're going to check the ecos at this point. It's 756 for blue, 902 for red, and 978 for orange. So what is that? Like a 2600? Did I even remotely do that math correct? And then for Bravo team, 526 for Romad, 911 for Bassa, and 1105 for Procellus. It's relatively even. I think the rockets are what's going to make this more Bravo team favored than Alpha team favored. And what a mess in the north here. Tomahawk does have a ton of factories, so blue is going to try to go for a push. I'm not sure if this is going to work out because it is still mostly a 2v1 against blue. With orange and pink and all of these producers for Bassa. It's nice to have these 4 missile boats in the north from Romad. And here comes another rocket. Romad's moving the Navy back just in case, so there's no friendly fire. And another excellent rocket by Bassa. Which buys Romad some time, but same thing, still a 2v1 situation. And there's a full dot of SAMs for snow. They're gonna park themselves here using that linked producer command. So all the whatever factories are connected to this command will just automatically send their SAMs down here. I use the command often. There's different opinions as to whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. Some players love it, some players never use it. Some players are indifferent. And that's the wonderful thing about Line Wars. There's so many different play styles and how people use the mechanics of the game. Bassa's now building 2 rockets at a time. And Procellus' rocket in the north is nearly complete. And we can turn off the lines. I mean, both kind of get the idea of what's going on. Both players are just jamming attack lines at each other right now. All 3 players, rather. This artillery piece for Snow facing the wrong way needs to get into the action. It's not Snow's fault. I mean, this is... If you've ever played Line Wars, surely you've had an artillery piece that derps around at one point in your career. I know I certainly have. Still a decent amount of bombers for Snow, but unfortunately there's no real way to use them because of how many SAMs there are here for Bravo team. And without building an airstrip somewhere, there's no real way to get them to the south. Cruisers doing what they do best, or one of the things that they do best, which is shell land units from the sea. Super effective in chokes like this. And a very cute little set of lines that Romad has here with the missile boats behind the cruisers. Which is pretty optimal. Here comes the rocket from Procellus. And the question is whether this will be the beginning of the end. For Alpha Team, it's going to go right to the producers. Can it get over the SAMs? Okay, well, it wasn't going straight to the producers. I lied to you again. Destroys a large part of the army. This is going to allow Procellus to push. Bass is also pushing. And Tomahawk is going to wisely back up. I don't know, even if red were, or blue were to dig in fully, I don't think there's really enough time to get defensive lines set up. And importantly, there's not really that many SAMs for blue anymore, so here come this hilarious amount of helicopters for green to track down the last of the SAMs. I guess there's a full dot of SAMs here for red, so maybe that makes it not as bad. Yeah, good pickup from Perchelis, who sends the helicopters home after seeing all those red SAMs. Romad after the, what has it been, 3 rockets now? From Bassa in the south. Starting to lose control a little bit, and as this choke, you know, widens, these units don't have to clump up so close to the coast. There is another rocket for Bassa. One is complete. A second rocket is going to finish up relatively soon. Perchelis probably has a rocket on the stand, and green does. And top down, it's pretty much the same distribution of territories, but Alpha Team is making progress in the south. The boats are moving away from the coast, so you know what that means. That means that there is another rocket on the way. And it's going to take out a bunch of artillery pieces and maybe some of these SAMs. Another rocket immediately goes on the stand for Bassa, who has the, I don't know, like 80th rocket of the game nearly complete on that original launch pad. And Perchelis also going for the patented 2 launch pad strat. And I think Perchelis would have maybe just enough money to actually build a second rocket. It'll be close. Green might have to turn off some of the producers. Green helicopter's doing a great job to find the one part of the lines that there really aren't that many SAMs. One of the pilots took a horrible line to the artillery pieces. But in general, a decent trade. I think this army from Bassa is what's going to make the difference now that there's so many pink producers here. Snow is opening up this second front against pink through the mountains. And here comes the bombers. They're going to find the launch pad. And we actually look, so this is Alpha Team's vision. It's interesting. I assume that Alpha Team's been trying to figure out where exactly these launch pads are. That's a fantastic rocket because it destroys so many of the SAMs. Although the pink helicopters aren't really that close, I guess. They could launch at this point, I don't know. Snow's vision, bombers have a terrible vision, by the way, compared to like interceptors or anything, but with 5 bombers they are able to find one of the launch pads, and we'll probably find the second one. Yeah, as all 5 of them get close. And this is very good for Alpha Team because the bombers won't be able to destroy the launch pads on this first pass, certainly not both of them. But they might be able to destroy it on the second pass, and Romad won't really be able to move these boats up to the north to kind of cut this off. Because if Romad moves the missile boats up to the north, then the bombers can just come down to the south and destroy all the cruisers. The good thing for Romad is that there is a mountain range here, which is a very good defensive position for Teal. And the bombers heavily damage these 2 launch pads. But don't destroy them. They would be able to destroy them if they come back again. And there's no rockets for Alpha Team yet in this game. Here's this airstrip. I love this airstrip from Snow. There's strikers on the way now. For red, Strikers have the ability to use a target command. You just click on a building. If it's in range, the strikers will automatically go there and focus only on that building, which is super useful for trying to take out launch pads, but it might not matter now that that Prochellus rocket has landed. And I think blue will probably be relatively scared at this point. This is a very large army from green. Okay, so yeah, that's scared enough that Tomahawk leaves the game. Snow does as well. Very GG. I'm excited to see the graphs from this game. Felt like there's a lot going on in that game. Come on, give me graphs. Empire value very close. And income-wise, Alpha Team was leading the entire game. The drop at the end is when a player leaves. It counts against the income. Interesting game. Very interesting. Like I said, there's a thread somewhere in the Line War Discord, which if you'd like to check out the Line War Discord, it's a wonderful place to be. Great conversations that are happening. I think it's in balanced discussions, potentially, is the channel. There's a thread about no rocket or something like that there was some conversations about. I know that Romad posted this replay as a discussion point in that thread. And I didn't really follow exactly what folks were saying, but just an interesting thing. And leave your comment down below what you think about rockets. I know they're different between 1v1s and team games, and it's like a very, you know, the age-old thing of like, how do you balance team games with 1v1 and RTS? It's a difficult thing to strike. But interesting game. Very well played to all 6 of the players. And I hope you enjoyed this cast. Have a wonderful night, day, evening, breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever it is. And as mentioned, I'll post Jon Joe and Dåseåbneren's channels in the description below. And if you know of any other content creators that cast Line War games or make Line War content, please mention them in the comments. It's a wonderful game, and you know, shouts out to the other content creators. Enjoy, folks. Thanks for the support. Peace.